So again, I do believe that to be successful in strategic account management is about being customer obsessed. We do need to make their life easier. We need to be better at doing that. We need to meet their needs better. We need to grow their business, and that's the way that we're going to be successful. That's the way that we're going to grow our own business. We also need to be able to identify their risk. Help them identify their risk. If we can be proactive in doing that and linking that to the value we bring, again, we're going to grow their business and become even more successful, both them and us. Before I leave you to the rest of your day and conference, I'd like to leave you with one last thing, which I call my platinum rule. In the past 10 years, I've worked in many different countries. And I have to say, country where being a woman in a leadership position was not necessarily frequent nor well accepted, to be honest. But again, and I've worked in country where, again, leading commercial operation, as you can imagine, sometimes going in with project on resource allocation, performance management, I also needed to build that credibility with my internal affiliate and leadership groups. And often, like again, I speak French and English, but when it comes to Russian, Turkish, Polish, I'm not that good. So when we needed to work with anyone beyond the leadership team, often English was not fluent, so I needed to work with translators. Having a translator is not an easy task. Creating bond with your colleague through a translator is not an easy task. But again, with genuine communication, with a lot of goodwill, you get over it and you get used to it. But one day I had to work in one of my Middle East countries, and I was talking with my general manager there, and he asked me to come with a colleague of mine, a junior colleague. Let's call him Mike for the purpose of the story. And I didn't ask too many questions. I was quite new in this role, in that role at that time. And I said, okay, that's good. And we went, we met, and just picture that. So we basically had a boardroom, the leadership team around the table, all men, myself at the end, and Mike beside me. So we start the meeting, and I speak English. And every 2 minutes, I need to stop, because Mike needs to repeat what I say. Because, again, being a woman, they needed to hear it from a man. So for the 30% women that are in this audience, probably and are at SEMA at this SEMA, as you can imagine, it was a very awkward moment for me. I went through the day. We reached the objective, but it was, again, very awkward, I have to say, and not without a little bit of internal frustration. But again, we went through it, and we got the hang of it, to be honest. Even when they were asking questions, Mike started repeating them to me. So we achieved the day. I went back to the regional office, and then I had a meeting with my boss, and he was not necessarily a happy man. Why was that? Because he felt challenged by the fact that one of his general manager, one of the country, was asking that. And he was challenged in the fact that he felt challenged in his decision of putting me in this role. So again, we agreed to disagree. The second meeting is planned. Same thing happened. I go there, Mike with me. We do the same thing, board meeting, all of them looking at Mike, repeating what I say. And at the end of the day, the general manager comes up to me, and he shook my hand, and he said, you know what, Dominique, next time, come along. We don't need Mike anymore. And that was, for me, an aha moment, because beside the frustration of what I had, like, again, my own personal feelings through that, I realized that by respecting their culture, and I'm not sure if they were testing or anything, and I never asked, but by respecting their culture, I had gained immense trust from that team. And from that day, that project, which was not an easy one, it was really, like, again, the performance of the country needed to be realigned. We needed to reallocate resources. It was really not an easy project, but it was one of the ones that was the most successful. And again, the collaboration I was having from that team was never questioned. I had the best of relation with them after that. So what is my platinum rule? Is basically honor their culture. That's the best way to accelerate the trust. And I know this seems like an extreme example, but just think about basic thing about culture. I'm sure you can think about many examples where, again, there's a cultural finesse that would probably help, again, creating that trust and that respect. It's not about you, it's about them. And it's about your passion, though, for being part of their success. That's, for me, the way to be successful in this journey and keeping the passion. The mere fact that you're all here this week, most of you are SAM or engaged into this project, so you're all probably strong believer in it. You're already bought into this. But again, if we go back to virus and vaccine, my last question to you is that, how can you become even more contagious? How can you become more contagious agent in your organization to really make this a cultural shift and not a silo one? Think about it. I sincerely wish you all to be viral in your dissemination of this culture that we need to instill to be successful. So I know there's been a lot of information. There's a lot of toolbox things. I've put at the end my contact information. As Bernard mentioned, I'm always happy to share. Don't hesitate to contact me. I want to thank you, and I want to wish you a great continuation. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions. Who is the first volunteer? Yes?
Thank you. I heard this in Berlin, and it's even better here in San Diego. The other day, the keynote speaker, he also spoke about being a change agent. Over the last day and a half, I've heard from some of the participants about the challenge of being a change agent and trying to be a change agent, but also not lose your job. Being politically correct and diplomatic, how can one be that change agent, especially in a company that might have geographic different locations?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. I would say that for me, one of the most important things is the passion. You need to be passionate about it and genuine about it. You also need to go where you can build advocacy. Like, you cannot do that journey in one day. So again, when you say not lose my job, you need to be careful not to brush people on the wrong side. I understand that. But again, you need to slowly build advocacy. And often it's one by one. And then try to have people that are, again, can help at a higher level to be able to build that advocacy. But I would say it takes patience. It takes a lot of passion. And also, again, that's why this morning I showed you a little bit the toolbox. I think we need to be able to prove the result of what's being done. So sometimes by piloting things, but being able then to be able to report it to get that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. The virus and the vaccine, I sensed a murmur in the crowd, right? There was a little ripple as that came up, because the first one was arrogance, which I think, is very honest of you to sort of put that up there. So as I'm sitting there reading it, I'm thinking, other than delicate, right? How do you deliver that message to your C-level in saying, look, we have an important sort of engagement with an important client. I need you to change some potential behaviors. How do you have that conversation? Can you help me with that a little bit?
We could have a scotch over that later on. You know what? Again, if we talk about culture, being Canadian, I think the Canadian culture is not very hierarchic. So I would say that in my experience, it's about being able to have those discussions, having those honest discussions, and being able to, again, maybe not tell an executive that you're arrogant and you need to be something else, but I think it's by presenting what they need to be, what kind of behavior they need to adopt with the account team, not focusing on what they are doing, but focusing on what they need to do. And again, I know that if you go back to the elk example, for me, that's why we need to open those channels to our SAM. they need to have connectivity with our executive if we want them to be able to bring them with our account teams. So I don't know if I'm answering a bit your question. It's a big one. But I think we need to have the courage of having those discussions, but basing them more on what we need them to, how we need them to behave with the customer by telling them how they are. I think it's maybe a more political approach than more facing the virus.
Yeah, so I think you addressed it. I have one follow-up then. So I've tried to prepare some executives for customer meetings, and I'm getting acknowledgement during that preparation session. Yes, I understand. Yes, they're sort of listening in a different world, right? And then when we get there, we've gone over the ground rules. Things, maybe go sideways a little bit, right? Because they revert back. Any thoughts on that, like how you manage that situation?
Well, having led L&D organization in my career, I think that we need to have the courage also of the feedback. And sometimes by asking permission to provide feedback. But again, it's all in the conversation. If you feel that in that interaction, it's not going, or that kind of changed behavior is not happening and it's causing tension, you're not gaining anything and your customer is not happy. So it's all about, again, enabling that honest, frank, and open discussion. And I know it sounds easier to say than to do, but it's all in the way of doing it and trying to, again, ask for permission to provide feedback, because you're the one who knows that customer. So trying to put that in a way where you present a customer view again and the importance of answering their needs. But it's all about those courageous conversation that I do think that we all need to have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just would like to add that the best XCT sponsorship programs I've seen, there is an expectation and a set of objectives that the XCT sponsor has to meet. And a lot of the objectives are related to the impact the sponsor has on the customer, concrete impact on, did we have a business discussion? Did we introduce innovative solutions, ideas from that meeting? And the idea is not to measure or to evaluate the XCT sponsor, but to quantify the feedback.
Yeah.
So that the XCT sponsor can become better. So it's preparation, feedback. In a way, you have to coach your XCT sponsor.
You do.
From that point of view.
You do. That's why
It's a two-way coaching thing.
Agreed. But you need to enable this. That's why I showed the ELK example. But I think we need to enable that and to have what I call a safe environment where both agree that that's going to happen. Like maybe an executive and a SAM, title are irrelevant. It's about, again, gaining that customer, focusing on their needs and achieving both objectives. And through that, it's okay. We're going to have open discussion, open feedback, and it's all about doing it in a respectful way. I think we need to be courageous and do it. Okay.
I had a question.
You have a question.
Is the necessity in some of the emerging markets to go more virtual, to cut costs, to be more efficient? Does that have an impact on connecting with executive and getting the executive support? What I'm trying to say is that you could say that, what is the impact of an executive to a virtual connection?
No.
There's not the same sort of...
No, you're right. And when I said that is, again, going virtual in the pharma, again, if you look at those emerging markets, the executive will often be the country manager that we bring to those. When I mention virtual, it's more for the account where you cannot afford to go. So it's more the transactional account. So you would not involve necessarily, the executive in that. But we still need to segment to be able to find. And then it's basically where's the threshold where I don't like but below that are these accounts you cannot afford to see one-on-one because it's a high volume, but the revenue is low. So you go with other innovative, and they may move to a different segment, but there's always a key segment or key account management, a key segment of account where then you need to bring them, and it's still face-to-face. Does that answer Bernard's question?
Yep, thank you.
And it varies, I have to say, country per country, a lot.
Yeah. Segmentation is key. Targeting. Anybody wants to ask a last question? I think we are on time. So thank you so much. This was a great, inspiring
Thank
presentation.
You. My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.